Helen with you at 3:05. Text lines are open if you want to have your say. Or, of course, you want the details of Dr. Dan, who is just joining us there, talking all things autism. Whether you're just curious to get a bit more information, you want to be part of his parent group, and as he was talking there about social groups for neurodivergent kids as well. Just send me the word Dan to 4001 or Dr. Dan, and I will send you his details. You can also reach us on 4001 if you want to share your challenges or maybe your tips and tricks. We're talking distance learning right now. And then after 5:30, the importance of movement, connection, and dare I say it, making some new connections too. It is, of course, Eye on Education, and we are, of course, talking about what you're talking about, which is online learning. It has been extended for many families, including mine. The novelty has well and truly worn off. Although saying that, more so for the parents than the kids, which I find quite fascinating. So we are going to be talking about motivation dips, screen fatigue, and the many parents who are juggling work alongside lessons. Plus, of course, the teachers. So what does good online learning actually look like right now, and how do we make it work for children, for parents, for teachers? Joined now actually by a man who understands all of those facets. Steve Arnold is the principal at Ranches Primary School, dad of 3, who's been right at the centre of making it happen. Steve, if I had an applause button that I could play right now, I would be pressing it, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I cannot applaud the educators and the teachers enough right now in terms of the agility, the mood that they're setting for the kids, you know, keeping that motivation up as far as possible under these circumstances and dealing often with their own kids. So I really do mean this. How are you?
I'm well. I actually consider myself relatively fortunate, and I would pass that applause on directly to the teachers on the ground who are doing the work.
And the admin and admission staff right now.
Leadership teams, absolutely. And I think I'm fortunate because I think I have a definite focus, and it is such an uncertain time. And because we know we're providing this really important resource, connection, all those words that you used, it gives us a real focus. It gives me a real focus. And I think it's actually really helping to deal with what is a real time of uncertainty as both a professional and as someone with a family. I think
that's exactly right. Having a purpose and a meaningful purpose, and in this case, you know, what higher purpose is there than, you know, kids' well-being and education in life in general, but especially now. That is actually really lovely to hear. But that doesn't mean it's not without its challenges, I'm sure. You know, we had a phone call earlier today, just like a well-being check from the school, and actually, can I just give a shout out? I'm not going to say which school my kids go to, but to one of the teachers at our kids' school who dropped off some stuff at the house to cheer them up. And I was like, that's going above and beyond. So these little well-being checks from the school, how are the kids doing? It's not unnoticed. So huge thanks, as I said, to everyone in education right now. How do you think kids are coping with this stretch of online learning, Steve?
Really interesting. I mean, the complexity that we're facing at the moment, maybe if we make a comparison to COVID, for example, which was obviously where we kind of all learnt about online learning and what it looks like, really, it's different because there is an enormous disparity in terms of family situations that perhaps there wasn't as much in COVID, because we have families who are doing their distance learning from elsewhere in terms of different countries. We have families who are struggling with both parents working full-time, one parent working full-time, running businesses which are also facing uncertainty at the moment. And it's this added level of complexity. So I think the really important part, and I'm really glad you mentioned well-being and connection, they're the two really important things at the moment. Because the one thing that we can deliver universally is that idea of actually staying connected and prioritising well-being. Now, I know that, again, I'm in a fortunate position in terms of we're just focusing on primary school and young children at the moment, and I know that other schools are doing an amazing job at approaching qualifications and exams and things. But for us, it's about making sure that those children still feel, and those families still feel connected to our school.
And still have a positive association with learning. Big time. Now, I do agree with you that, you know, the older age groups, the seniors, obviously IB being cancelled has been headline news this week. But don't do yourself a disservice. I do think primary brings its own challenges. We were talking early years just yesterday, and the thought of getting a 4-year-old to sit and do, it's like, power to your teacher. If you're able to translate what you do in the classroom in a space that's been designed for early years to someone's apartment through an iPad, that's a huge ask. And then you go up to year 6, one of my daughter's age, and actually she's pretty independent. She sets her alarms for when her live classes are. She's cracking on with her tasks. She's replying to her teacher. So primary, there's a huge spectrum really of ages and challenges. So your teachers are having to really be very agile, I'd imagine.
Yeah, 100%. And it is the youngest children for us, which for that reason it is a real focus, because we operate, as a lot of schools do here in Dubai, a play-based curriculum in the early years, that importance of learning through play. And as you can imagine, sort of translating that to an online remote provision is really, really difficult. Mm-hmm. So what we're really trying to do is to make sure there are resources available online which children and parents can take and run with. But of course, it does then depend on parents' ability to engage through their really busy day. So
tell me about it.
Yeah, little and often for those younger children, little and often chunks, things that are structured, lots of stories, connections with the teachers online, stories, songs, all of those things. Keeping those routines going is so important.
I think also it's this idea of our shifting expectations, because certainly during COVID, I was striving for perfection, and it led to disaster. It became this idea of, have you done that task? There's another, Seesaw's done a notification. Why haven't you done this? And I realised, actually, you're 5. And what I don't want you to do is hate me and hate school. So it became this idea of maybe just being a bit more realistic about what's achievable and focusing on, yes, of course, getting the academics, hopefully, touching wood and crossing fingers and everything. This is going to be a short-lived stretch of online learning, but understanding that, as you say, there are more important priorities right now.
Yeah, and leaning on the teachers that are there, leaning on them for advice, and they're really good at giving really practical advice. For busy parents who are feeling uncertain anyway, taking the pressure off. So I've spoken to so many parents about, they're worried about, am I giving the right instruction here for this maths task? This isn't how I learnt maths, for example. This isn't how we did it at school. Take the pressure off, use the resources that are there, speak to the children and the teachers, and really understand how we do things at our school. But also, if things are getting fraught, which they will in busy households with multiple children, mine being one of them.
You've got 3.
Exactly. So when things are getting fraught, it's okay to stop. It's okay to stop and go, do you know what? Actually, let's just pause it here for a second. Let's have a break. Let's go for a play outside, whatever it is. Let's have 20 minutes off and then come back to it. Because the worst thing that you can do in that stage is to add more pressure on.
And it become emotional and dysregulated.
Yeah, and parents are doing a job which many of them aren't then trained to do. And can you imagine if I was trying to do my job as a teacher, but I also had to do the plumbing at home? Yeah. I mean, the strain that would put on me would be really, really, I wouldn't know what I was doing. It would be disaster. We'd have to move somewhere else. But that's essentially what parents can feel like they're being asked to do. But it's really important, and what we've tried really hard to do is to make sure actually we're giving them the structure and the routine so that it is doing those things like building independence in the children, but also focusing on connection and well-being and a little bit of levity too. Like we all need a little bit of levity at the moment. So let's not take it, especially in the primary years, let's not take ourselves too seriously. We have a go at it and we move on.
And hopefully we're all friends at the end of the day. That's the goal. Steve Arnold staying with us. He is the principal at Ranches Primary School. I do want to talk about what are some of the warning signs that a child is struggling or disengaging, a little bit about managing screen fatigue. And yes, I do want to come back to the teachers about teacher wellbeing. So if you've got any questions, please do get in touch. You can reach us on 4001.
Dubai Eye 103.8 traffic.
In the studio, Jen Crichton's with us. It is exactly 3:15. How are the roads? Oh no, you're making a face.
No.
Oh, cool.
Still looking quite quiet, which is maybe it's my confused face.
Oh.
Normally around this time of day it starts to get busy.
It's a horror, the horror face, but
Yeah.
no.
No, it's not. It's a face. Bit of congestion on the southbound carriageway of the Al Khail Road around Dubai Design District, which is an area we commonly see it, but it's not as bad as usual. We've got an accident at the junction of the D77 and the 311 right now. It's just happened, no real tailbacks, but one to watch out for. Do have 2 accidents right now in Oud Mehta on those side streets there. 1 accident just alongside Dubai International Airport on the E11 slip road. Bit of congestion through Sharjah, particularly northbound on the E11 through Sharjah city centre. 311 looking slightly busy as well from the international airport into Sharjah, and we have got 2 accidents on the S112, minor bumps through the industrial area. But other than that, not much to report. If you see anything I've missed, you can let us know as always on 4001. But please, please, please don't text while you're driving.
Thank you.
This is Dubai Eye 103.8.
And just a quick reminder, on a Thursday, we actually have 2 separate podcasts. So earlier in the day, we were talking about movement and stress and small business shout-outs. So that's on the Afternoons with Helen Farmer podcast. And then it's Eye on Education standalone, which is shockingly called Eye on Education. But you can find them in the same place, Apple, Amazon, Spotify. I think you can even ask your Alexa.
More of Afternoons with Helen Farmer is coming up next.
On the UAE's #1 talk radio station.
19 minutes past 3. I've had many of you asking for the details of Dr. Dan Shepherd. We were in conversation earlier to mark World Autism Day. So if you do want to send me the word Dan to 4001, I'll send you the website there at the Psychiatry and Therapy Centre. Former teacher, now has a PhD in autism and a doctorate in clinical psychology. So he spoke really beautifully about the supports that are in place, not just for children with autism, young people, but also for parents too. So Dan to 4001. And of course, as I said earlier, that podcast will be up very soon indeed. As we've been talking about, for some families, online learning is working really well. There's a degree of flexibility and home comfort that kids are quite enjoying. For others, it has become a daily struggle of screens and schedules and stress, not just from the kids, but from the parents too. Now, we are hopefully looking at a final stretch of online learning, but we're talking now about how we move from just getting through it to actually supporting kids and, to learn and feel okay about it. So Steve Arnold's with us today. He's the principal at Ranches Primary School, and we're talking about what's working, what isn't, and how, I think this is the really crucial bit, Steve, how schools and parents can meet in the middle. This communication, because literally just a minute ago, I got an email from my daughter's teacher saying, I've noticed this, I've noticed that. I think she'd benefit from an extra bit of support. Here's a link for a tutorial that we're doing every day at 1 o'clock so we can go over her work. And I was like, that's above and beyond to my mind. So when it comes to how teachers can recognise if a kid is struggling or disengaging, how do you talk to your teachers about what they might have to pick up through a screen rather than face to face?
Yeah, great question. And the signs that a child is struggling, is coming across that sort of emotional well-being difficulty vary so much from individual to individual. It's all about that, looking for that change in the characteristics of your child. Are they becoming withdrawn, where they usually be really outgoing? Are they demonstrating signs of frustration, quick to anger, those sorts of things? But also, are they not engaging in the things that they would usually engage in for that downtime? Is that change in behaviour? And once that starts to arrive, I mean, the key thing that you just touched on there is communication. So there has to be a really open line of communication between home and school, especially during this time, because the parents now have the absolute inside view of how things are going on the ground. And if we don't hear directly, then it's very difficult for us to adapt. And that's really great that teachers are picking up on little things on their online interaction. But what you see and your knowledge of your child is absolute gold. That is the critical information. And my advice to parents always, even in normal times of schooling, is tell us straight away. Don't wait for it. Don't think, we'll just watch it and wait and see. It's probably a small thing. I don't want to bother them, all those sorts of things. Send the email, send the seesaw message, give the school a call, whatever it is, whatever that line of communication is for you, tell them early. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I would really recommend if children and families are struggling, and this might be a little bit tricky, but bear with me here, is try to flip the thinking about this online situation in terms of looking for what the positives of this situation are. There are things that our children are going through at the moment, as well as our staff, which will set them up so well for the future. This entire situation is teaching us about adaptability, flexibility, responding to things quickly, independence and resilience, and those key skills that we know are actually the most important thing for long-term success, above and beyond the academic knowledge and things like that. And if you have a child like my daughter Tilly, for example, she's 10, so she was in year 1, I think, when COVID hit, and now she's in year 5 at the moment. And it's really, really interesting. She's gone through these 2 stages in her development, and in both of them, the shift in her in terms of saying, actually, I need to start doing some of these by myself, about being organised, about being ready to go, about actually having to make an effort to reach out to people for that communication. I really think actually she'll walk away from this with some key skills that perhaps me, when I was 10, I might not have had.
And I would also add to that, one of my big takeaways from COVID was the insights it gave me about how my children learn. It was a tough lesson to learn. I didn't relish it at the time. But, sitting side by side with my kids and looking at tasks, because at that point I was freelance, so it was a little bit more flexible. I got a really clear understanding of where perhaps they were struggling, what came a bit easier to them. And then that meant that when we were back in the classroom, I had a greater understanding when we came to parent-teacher nights of going, oh, actually, can we talk about this? And I feel like I'm grasping at straws here looking at the positives, but I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't feel like it now, but I think we'll look back at this and go, there was so much growth there in small ways and in big ways.
Yeah, and I don't know how you feel yourself, but when I look back at the COVID period, I actually see it personally as a time of personal and professional growth. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't wish it to happen again to anybody, but you look back at the opportunities in terms of adapting to that situation and the difference in the way we spent our time. It actually allowed us, through that adversity came opportunity to do things differently. And actually, had it not been for COVID, we probably wouldn't be in this position now where we were able to make that switch so smoothly to remote learning. And this situation is entirely different, and it's difficult to find positives in the wider situation, but we can find positives in the way we respond to it. And that's the opportunity.
Steve, you've been really visible with the community. You've been doing videos and challenges. Why does that matter?
Connection. I mean, we know that when the children come back, particularly young children, it will be an extended period of time they've been away from school, and learning is completely reliant on, and this goes all the way through school, children and young people feeling confident, comfortable and safe in their environment, and that's all to do with relationships. Mm-hmm. So how well do they know, how well are they bonded with the people around them and in front of them? And for me, for example, I'm doing a daily video diary as a principal, just making silly little videos, being very, very light, very, very funny. Or probably not that funny. I try to be funny
Who
with the
doesn't
kids.
like a dad joke?
Yeah, exactly. Cringeworthy, more like. But and I'm really willing to make a fool of myself to make sure that when those kids see my face and hear my voice again, it is that familiar sound, it is that familiar sight, and they feel safe.
Yeah. Screen fatigue, I have to ask you, because I find, especially with primary age kids, actually that's not true with all kids, and if we're being truly honest, all of us, once they're on a screen, it's hard to get them off a screen. So even after that last task or that last live has ended, of going, okay, the iPad goes down, we're going to close the laptop and we're going to, do something else. Any advice for managing that? Because I know some teachers are maybe setting them up with a task on the iPad and then they're going away to do something and then they might need to take a photo of it, upload it. Yep. They're not necessarily, we hope, eyeballing an iPad for 6 hours a day, but it's definitely more than we'd like.
Yeah, and I think lots of parents are asking that question, and a lot of parents have talked about, why aren't they, for example, doing live lessons from 8 o'clock till 3 o'clock every day? And in terms of our approach, the reason why we're not doing that, you've really just touched on the reasons. For young children, that those extended periods of screen time can actually be counterproductive. We know what it does to the brain in terms of the way that the brain responds. But we also know that we're kind of handcuffed a little bit here. We have to use screens. We don't really have a choice. So it is exactly as you describe. It is the breaking it up. And I know in the guidance that has been sent around to lots of schools, it talks about, maximum 25 minutes at a single time, that stretch. And I think that's a really good guide for younger children, even smaller chunks. Set them up with the task, give the instructions, and wherever possible, ask your children or encourage your children to do the work, do the response to whatever the stimulus is, the old-fashioned way, on pen and paper. Get them on the kitchen table, get them step away from the screen or whatever it is. Get them then to take a picture of it and submit it, because that's a really good way of breaking it up. But also there's all sorts of research about the way we retain information or recall information when we actually write it down in the old-fashioned physical way. So I'd certainly recommend that. And then for the younger children, play. Lots of play, lots of creativity.
And lastly, just to come back to where we started, which was applauding the teachers, the educators, and as I said, admins and admission teams who are working behind the scenes. What message would you give to any teachers who are listening right now, who are feeling overwhelmed? And, who knows if this does continue, this idea of potentially juggling a hybrid of in-person, online, maybe their own kids and their own sanity.
This is such an overused analogy, but I'm going to use it anyway. On a plane, they tell you to put your own mask on first before you fit it to the children. And the reason they do that is you need to be safe. You need to be able to do it before you then pass on the advice to others. And teachers is exactly the same. You cannot be effective in terms of building those connections, relationships, and learning unless you feel like you're in a position to do so.
Thank you so much. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It is a lot. There are a lot of very stressed out teachers who might be teaching on different time zones, by choice or not by choice, who've got their own kids to juggle and manage. And my brain boggles and my heart goes out to them. Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So nice to have you in studio.
Yeah, lovely to be here.
You've even put a suit on. I'm like, crikey.
Listen,
we're in distance learning
always
mode.
ready to go. You never know.
It's a bit like COVID, where my husband's like, I'm just going to put jeans on once a week to keep me honest.
I love that. I love that.
Just try and wear a bit of structured clothing from time to time. Steve Arnold, principal at Ranches Primary School, in the studio. We really hope you're okay out there, folks. And we're going to be talking about the importance of tying exactly back to there, about play, about movement, about connection. Screens are working very hard right now, but we are going to be talking about inactivity and how much that can impact our kids, not just physically, but also their ability to concentrate during those tasks too.
Your ARN News.
Over 2,000 drones have been dealt with by